Hey there everybody, this is Caitlin here and welcome to a brand new month. We are here in April, we are here on Card Game Tuesday as always, and today in particular we have a deck profile for you. Now, this deck profile I've been kind of excited to share with you guys. I know maybe not so many people would be too hyped about this list or whatever, but kind of messing about with this deck or whatever, I've had a lot of fun making it, I've had a lot of fun playing it, so it might not be one of your top tier meta decks or whatever, and I know like people will slate me or whatever for saying, oh, why are you building decks that are just like, you know that they're obviously not going to be meta breaking and all this stuff, but you know what? This is a card game, and we're allowed to have fun, and we're allowed to have fun with these decks or whatever. So, in terms of this deck, we are calling it Pricia, Champion of the World. I'm going to use this version of Pricia, actually, not RDE Pricia. I know a couple of people were asking me whether I was going to make my own True Beastmaster Pricia deck, and that will come, but essentially I wanted to make a deck with this first before I actually dived into the newest version of Pricia, because since I got this Ascended Pricia card, I've been desperate to make a deck with her and desperate to share it with you guys. So you know what, we're going to do her first. I feel like this week is kind of going to be like a little bit of a Pricia week, because we've got a couple more Pricia themed videos coming this week, so keep an eye out for that if you like your homegirl here, Pricia. Friend to the animals, so obviously this is the Ascended version. I really like the artwork on this. It's actually one of my favourite artworks at all, and for any kind of Pricia ever. Obviously, she is a human/beast. Her judgment is 2. She has Energize, this time actually. This Pricia comes with Energize of green. And down here at the bottom says, this card gains Pricia the Beast Lady in addition to its other name, so basically its previous name. You may pay the attribute cost of 4 Sacred Beast Resonators with Will of any attribute. And for 2 green, you can choose one. Beasts you control gain 100/100 until end of turn, or 4 Sacred Beasts you control gain 100/100 until end of turn. And then we flip her over and she becomes Pricia, Champion of Yggdrasil, and she's a 1000/1000, and she's so cute with her big massive fluffy ears, and she's so amazing. And now a wall of text, so apologies. She's still a human and a beast. This card gains Pricia the Commander of the Sacred Beasts in addition to its other names. And then again, wall of text here, so my apologies. This card gains Precision as long as you control a Light Resonator, Swiftness as long as you control a Fire Resonator, Flying as long as you control a Water Resonator, and 200/200 as long as you control a Wind Resonator. And she's got her Gods Art, which is now called Meet My Family, which is 3 Wind and then X. Search your deck for up to X 4 Sacred Beast Resonators with different names, reveal them and put them into your hand, then put up to X 4 Sacred Beast Resonators with different names from your hand into your field and shuffle your deck. You can only play the Gods Art once per game, which is pretty standard, but I absolutely adore this card. I don't know whether they'll ever do another Ascended campaign or whatever. I feel like since obviously Alice Cluster rotates out in September, so if they were ever to do another Ascended one, they would have to do it pretty soon. Otherwise, they would have to maybe do it for Lapis Cluster, which would seem a little bit weird or whatever. But I hope that maybe they do some kind of Ascension campaign sometime in the future. Maybe not straight away or whatever. Maybe they'll wait till Alice Cluster rotates out till they do it again. But I really like the idea. I think it's really neat, and I'm really glad that I managed to get this version of Pricia because she's one of my favourite rulers to ever play. Now, going into the actual Resonators, you might see a little bit of a theme slowly building up after I start showing you the first amount of initial Resonators or whatever. First up, we have 2, the Beast Queen's Guardian, which technically are actually placeholders in this deck, and you'll see why in a little minute. They are actually placeholders for this version of Pricia here, which is from Vingolf 3, which is Pricia Wildchild. They kind of like... They're not obviously the same card because they're obviously 2 different cards, but the idea I had with them is that obviously they get stronger potentially as the game goes on. Obviously with this one, you can evolution it for 2, so basically it starts off at 3/3, and if you pay a Wind and a Void, then you can put an evolution counter on it, and as long as there's 1 or more evolution counter on this, it gains 3/3, so it's essentially a 6/6 for the cost of 3. And then with this Pricia here, she's a 1-drop with a 100, it starts off as a 100/100. She has Resonance, where when you call a Wind Magic Stone, you put 2 100/100 counters on this card. And she gains Precision and 100/100 as long as your ruler is basically Pricia. So they kind of have the same idea. I don't have the extra copies of this Pricia yet, which I feel like potentially I would drop these Pricias and put 2 more of these instead. So like I would have 4 of them. I know that seems a little bit overkill, but you'll get the point when I show you like the kind of theme of this deck anyway. The kind of idea of this deck is that we are swarming the deck with all versions of Pricia that have been in Resonator form, essentially. So next up we have 3 copies of Pricia, the Pursuant of Exploding Flame, a 3-drop 700/400, which is 1 wind, 1 fire, 1 void. You know the drill with this one. You've seen it before in a ton of different decks. It's got swiftness, target attack first strike, pay a wind, and it gains flying until end of turn. And when it's put into the graveyard, you deal 500 damage to your opponent, so it's kind of like a thunder in a way when it dies. So the main idea of this deck is that we've got all the different versions of Pricia that we could get our little hands on, and we are, it's going to be the Pricia army, essentially. Pricia is the champion of the world. Next up, we have 2 copies of Pricia, Beast Queen in Hiding. I only have 2 copies of this card in particular, and I'm really sad because she's such a good card for like a 3 cost. What she does is when this card enters your field, you can put evolution counters on something with no counters on it, but we're not really looking for it for that effect. What the effect we like is, if a spell or ability would increase this card's attack or defense, it increases it by double that much instead, which is pretty insane. And you can pay a green and choose any number of attributes. This card becomes those attributes until end of turn, which is kind of helpful if, say, you're trying to color fix for when you are, say, flipping Pricia, or you're using her God's Art, or you're, like, using all manner of things, really. It's actually quite a helpful thing to use. And then next up, we technically have these 2. Now, I know that this is the Shift Valentina, so ideally, when you are playing it, you would have it, like, if I can get it out of the sleeve. Ideally, when you have it in your deck, you would prefer to have it on this side, because this is the original side, which is obviously Slayer of the Overlord Pricia. Oops, I dropped it. Now, the technical ruling of this is that shift cards have to be on their front-facing side in your deck. And then you can decide whether you are going to play them on the front side, or you can hard cast the shift side. Ideally, I prefer not to play this side of Pricia. I do love her artwork and everything like that, but at the same time, it's just like, I don't want to pay 5 for essentially what I want to do. So obviously, I'll read out this side just so you guys know. On this side, she has a shift, which is 2 water and 1 void, where, you shift over and flip over into this other one. But when she enters your field, this card and target J/Resonator your opponent controls deal damage equal to their attack to each other. And you can pay 1, and this card gains plus 100 and 100 until end of a turn, which, considering she's only got 400 attack, is not actually too good anyway, so, especially since she's a 2-drop for 400, 400, so that's why I prefer to play her on this side. But obviously, in terms of legality, if you are playing this card, you would have to play it on the other side, or whatever, or at least have it in your deck on the other side, and not this side. On this side, she is a 3-cost. She is Possessor, Princess of Love, Valentina, technically, but it's still Pricia's body, so it counts for the Pricia theme. A 3-cost, 2 water, and 1 void. When this card is put into a graveyard from your field, gain control of a target Resonator. That's the main thing that I like about this, is that you get to steal something. So basically, if your opponent was like, yeah, I'm going to swing at you with this big thing, I'm like, cool, I'm going to block here with Valentina, I'm going to steal your big thing, it's mine now. So, running 2 copies of that. And then next up, we're going to have the support of the Sacred Beast family. We are going to be running 2 of each Sacred Beast. I know some people would say this is a little bit overkill, but you know what? They look so dang pretty when you put them in the deck. And you know what? As much as people like to harp on that Sacred Beasts aren't as, good, or they're not as efficient anymore, since, we've got so many different decks and everything like that, and there's just quicker ways to get things into your field, I still really like the Sacred Beast. It was one of the first proper decks I ever played, I ever had fun with, and everything like that, so that's why they're in here. They're in here for, a couple of reasons. So I'll quickly go through what they each do, but if you've been in this game since Alice Cluster, you should pretty much know what all these Sacred Beasts do anyway, and you get to see, the old stamping that they used to have in the Alice Cluster days. So we have... I never call these things by their name, by the way. I always usually just call them by their animal. So I call this chicken. I know this is like a phoenix or something like that, but I just call it chicken anyway. So this is a chicken. It's a 2-cost. It's a fire and a void. It has swiftness, and when it enters your field, it deals 200 damage to target Resonator for each 4 Sacred Beasts you control, which counts itself. So when it enters, it's technically doing 200. So just be wary of that. So running 2 of this. Next up, we have the Turtle. It's a 3-cost. It's a 1 water and 2 void. When this card enters your field, return target Resonator to its owner's hand if its total cost is less than or equal to the number of 4 Sacred Beasts you control. And when this card blocks, prevent the next damage that would be dealt to it until end of turn. And then next up, we have the Dragon, who again doesn't fly for some reason. He is a 3-cost, he's 2 wind and 1 void. When this card enters your field, if you control another 4 Sacred Beasts, you draw a card, which is quite handy. And then you can pay 1, and other 4 Sacred Beast Resonators you control gain 200 until the end of turn. Play this ability only once per turn. And then the last one we have here is the Tiger, who's a 3 cost. It's 1 light and 2 void. It has target attack, which is very nice, which is essentially, what's it called now? It's got a new name now. It's not, it's precision now. Yes, that's what this is. When this card enters your field, you gain 200 life for each 4 Sacred Beast Resonators you control, which is very, very nice indeed. And then last but not least, in terms of our Resonators, we are running 1 copy of this beastie guy here. He's I can't say it right. Xiang Long or something like that. Leader of the 4 Sacred Beasts. He is a hefty 6 cost, which, considering that we can cheat in things like Izanagi now thanks to spinning this, I don't think it's too much. I don't think it's too much at all. He is a 1000, and when this card enters your field, for each different attribute among all the wills spent to pay this card, search your main deck for 4 Sacred Beasts that shares the same attribute and put it into your field, and then shuffle your main deck, and it gains 100 for each 4 Sacred Beasts that you control. So since we're running we're running 4 Sacred Beasts and 2 of each, so that is potentially 800 added onto this guy here. But that's like assuming we manage to get all of them out, which, you know, you might not get all of them out in a certain game, but you know, you can always try. Now, going into our additions, we are running 2 of the Windscled Refuge. I swear, every time I make any kind of green deck, this card has to be in there, mainly to protect our J-Rulers and everything like that, but also good to protect our Resonators from abilities and spells, and also to get the card draw, so it's very nice to have, so I have to run 2 of it. And then I'm also running 2 of CC the Ancient Force because, funnily enough, pretty much all of our Resonators, except for the Shift Valentina / Pricia, are beasts / 4 Sacred Beasts, except from also Huanglong, because they don't share the same attribute, because Shift Pricia on this side actually is a 12 Apostle, so it doesn't count for CC's buff, but you know what, it's still a handy addition to have. It's only a 2 cost. Basically, beasts and 4 Sacred Beasts we control gain 200, or whenever a Resonator is put into a graveyard from your field, you may pay 3, which is 2 wind and 1 void. If you do, draw a card, which, you know, it's handy if you have the extra will open. Next up, for another edition that maybe a couple of people have forgotten about, it is actually a Rhythm of Life, a 3-cost edition. It gives an added Resonator 800, and when this card is put into a graveyard from your field, you put it back into its owner's hand. This is quite funny to attach to the Pricia, who is this one here, the Beast Queen in Hiding, because obviously she gets buffed up a hell a ton, especially if 2 of them on her, which would be pretty insane, actually. It's kind of funny when that happens. In terms of regalia, for some reason, I'm not quite sure why, I only have 1 regalia of the Horn of Sacred Beasts on me right now. I know my other copies are probably sitting in another deck somewhere, but ideally I would run 3 or 4 copies of this card, because obviously it goes so well with Pricia. It gives her imperishable until end turn, and also gives her 200, and obviously you tap this to spend the void cost for your Sacred Beast, so you can get them out for cheaper. And obviously it's got the handy ability where you can banish this card, and we can shuffle all magic stones or cards from our deck into our respective deck, so into our magic stone deck or into our regular deck. So I would run 4 copies of this, although I only have 1 copy on me right now for some reason. I'm guessing it's sitting in another deck, being like, oh yay, regalia, woohoo. Next up, we have our regular spells, and we have 2 copies of Rapid Growth. I felt like Rapid Growth, it's so good in that it has Remnant and Quick Cast that I feel like you don't need to run too many copies of it, because you can at least get 4 chances out of it from just the 2 cards, which is really, really nice. So that's why I'm only running it at 2. I feel like maybe running 4 would be a little bit overkill, considering they've got Remnant, so like I feel like we wouldn't need to like use it 8 times or whatever in any given game. Next up, we have Prison in the Lunar Lake. We've got 3 of these. It is a 3-drop, 1 water, and 2 void. So Chant Standby, which apparently Chant Standbys are going to be making a comeback in the cluster that's coming after Lapis, which is kind of good because I was worried that they were just going to phase out Chant Standbys and everything like that. And it's just like, why? Like when you made cards like Heavenly Gust or whatever. Actually, no, not Heavenly Gust. What am I thinking about? I'm thinking of something else that gets rid of things in your Chance Standby area. But when they like made all these cool combos with Chance Standby areas, I don't understand why they just decided, you know what, we're not using it in this cluster at all. I don't know why they did that. I don't know if they're going to bring them back. I hope they do, because I quite like the mechanic. But anyway, this card, its trigger is that when your opponent plays an automatic ability of a Resonator they control that was put into a field from a non-field zone this turn, while you control a water stone, you cancel that ability and destroy the Resonator. I could go on for days and days and days about all the things that don't trigger this and all the things that do trigger this, but most of the time, it is just common sense. As our beloved Jordan from Forceable says, to understand the card, read the card, and all this stuff, and things like that. So you just need to like keep an eye on it, and play it out in your head. If it doesn't make sense, then the interaction probably doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't work. But always be handy. Just ask around, and even like look it up. There are plenty of people online or whatever who will happily take the time out to tell you what is a valid interaction and what is not a valid interaction with this card in particular. Because I know sometimes the wording can be a little bit weird and whatnot, so that is totally fine. Next up, we've got 3 copies of Seal of Wind and Light, a very handy spell chant instant. It's a wind and a light card, obviously. It has the ability that we cancel target spell. It also has an awakening where players can't chase the card, but we don't have any way to produce Moonwill in this deck, so we're not really bothered about that. It's mainly just a good cancel. Next up, we have Sprint of the Beast Lady, which obviously, since this is a Pricia deck, we really want to use this because it is such a good card, plus she's looking so epic, riding the little tiger there. It's a 3-cost chant, it's 2 wind and 1 void. J/Resonators you control gain 600 until end of turn, and if that's targeting the Beast Queen in hiding, then she gets double the buffs, so she's getting 12/12 from this, which is pretty nice. And then last but not least, we are running 2 copies of Wall of Wind. Pretty basic, actually. It's just 1 wind for this, and we cancel a target spell unless its controller pays 1. And now going into our Magic Stone base. It isn't really too complicated, but you might be wondering, why am I not running Ruler's Memoria? And I'll explain this in a wee second once I go through the stones. We have 3 copies of a Magic Stone of Blasting Waves, produce wind or fire. Then we have 3 copies of Magic Stone of Gusting Skies. It produces light and wind. Next up, we have 3 copies of the Magic Stone of Deep Wood, which produces wind or water. And then last but not least, we just got 1 little lonely windstone. So you'll be wondering, why am I not running Ruler's Memoria if I'm running several Resonators that have multiple attributes? Well, the main reason for that is because of this Pricia right here. Pricia's resonance only goes off if a wind magic stone enters. Ruler's Memoria does not count as a wind magic stone because it is a special magic stone. Now, in terms of the jewel stones here, yes, they are special magic stones, but it's treat this card as a wind magic stone and a water magic stone, treat this card as a fire magic stone, blah, blah, blah. They still count for Pricia's resonance, which is why we're mainly running the jewel colors and not running Ruler's Memoria, and also because, I don't know, because considering we're only running 4 regalia, that's not really enough to justify running Ruler's Memoria in this deck, I feel personally. So that's the reason why I'm not running Ruler's Memoria in particular in this. I actually do have a sideboard for this. Normally, for these kind of fun casual decks, I don't make a sideboard. But for this one, I was like, you know what, I'll throw together a sideboard just because sometimes people ask about it. What would I consider this for a sideboard? I would have 2 of the Last Drop, mainly because I am totally in love with this card. It's one of my favourite spells. I'll be so sad when it goes away. It's a 2-drop. You choose one, you gain 1,000 life, or put a target Resonator that's 2 cost or less from your graveyard into your field rested. Then we have 3 copies of Heavenly Gust, 2 cost quick cast. Obviously, it's got that one where it's you destroy target addition or regalia, or if you taunt it, you destroy all additions or regalia your opponent controls. And I also like this chance standby here because it's actually kind of handy. It is Ambush, and it actually has Pricia on it as well, so it kind of plays up to the theme of the Pricia deck. It's a 2 cost, it is 1 wind and 1 void chance standby. The trigger is that whenever a J/Resonator your opponent controls attacks, you can put a wind Resonator with total cost 3 or less from your hand into your field. So this can target basically it can target Pricia Beast Queen hiding, it can target Pricia the exploding Pursuant of Exploding Flame, it can target the Shifter Pricia, although I think it would only target its front side, not this side actually, because this is technically a water card, so it wouldn't actually affect that. And other than that, it can also target the Sacred Green Dragon as well, actually, because that's a green one as well. It's a wind one. So I would consider these for the side deck if I had to include one. So there you go, guys. This is my deck profile for Pricia, Friend of the Animals, Pricia, Champion of Yggdrasil, Pricia, Champion of Our Hearts, and everything like that. I will eventually have a deck profile for you guys for the true Beastmaster Pricia. I know that's one that a lot of people are eager to build after seeing how well it performs, whatever, at these GPs and everything like that. I will make my slant at it. Don't know if it's going to be as great as any of the other ones, because I can feel that people would just make comparisons and all that. So I will try and make my own original build for it, and we'll see how well that plays out. But let me know, guys, what you think of this deck. Are you excited for the Ascended Rulers? Do you think you can try it out, or whatever? What do you think of the old style Pricia with her 4 Secret Beasts and everything like that? Let me know in the comments down below, guys. And until next time, guys, I will see you all later.